Adrian, and I'm going to be performing first the anterior and posterior load and shift test. So what you're going to do is you're going to stabilize up here, try and grab where you can feel like the bony, and then move it posterior and anteriorly. A positive test, you do this bilaterally so that you can see if it moves more than 25%, that would be a positive test, and that would indicate glenohumeral instability. The next test is the apprehension test. So you're gonna have your person do like half a goalpost, and then you're gonna push back, and if they are apprehensive, that would be a positive test, and that would indicate anterior and instability. The posterior apprehension test, you're gonna have your person lay down, and I'm gonna and so they're gonna look like they're kind of holding a cell phone, and you're gonna put an axial load down through their shoulder. So if there is any apprehension in that, then that would be a positive test, and that would indicate posterior instability. And the next one is the sulcus sign test. So you're gonna grab them on their arm and kind of pull downward. And if there's any divot or dimple about right here in their shoulder, then that would be a positive test, and that would indicate inferior instability. And the next test is the shear test. And so you're gonna kind of put some compression on the AC joint, and a positive test would be pain or laxity. So you could do this bilaterally for laxity, and that would indicate an acromioclavicular injury.
Hi, I'm Brittany DeGraff, and I'll be doing the sternoclavicular joint test, the supraspinatus test, infraspinatus test, and the drop arm test. So the first one is sternoclavicular. So you want to find the clavicle and where it meets the sternum, and then go a little bit laterally and press down on it. And since this test is for laxity, you want to do both sides. So find the clavicle, SC joint, move laterally, and press down. If there is laxity, that is a positive test, and that is for an SC joint sprain. The next one is the drop arm test that I'm going to do. So I'll instruct her to lift her arm up and have her palm out and lower it as slow as she can. Really good. So a positive test for that is if they're trying to lower it really slow and they just kind of drop it, that's a positive test for a rotator cuff weakness or tear. And the next test is the empty can test. So I'll have her hands at 45 degrees and act as if she's like dumping out some soup cans. And I'm going to press down on her, like around her forearm. I'm going to press down, and she needs to resist. Good. So this is for supraspinatus weakness. A positive test is if one of her hands drops lower than the other. And that would be a positive test. So the next one is the infraspinatus strength test. So this one, I want her to have her elbows at 90 degrees and pin them to her sides. And I want her to make sure that her elbows are always by her sides. And I'm gonna press inward with both my hands, and she needs to resist the force I'm using. Good job. So a positive test would be if one of her hands goes in, and that would be for infraspinatus weakness or pathology.
Okay, I'm Sarah Dudley, and the first test I'm going to do is the speeds test. So for this test, they are going to have their arms out with the palms up. I'm going to push down on her wrist, and she's going to resist my force. So, good. And then if I was able to push down one of her arms, that would indicate weakness, and that would be a positive test, which would indicate biceps brachii injury, specifically the long head. And then, so the next test I'm going to do is the Hawkins-Kennedy test. So I'm gonna have her bring her arm out like this. I'm gonna kind of hold her elbow, and I'm gonna push down on her wrist. And if she was having any pain, that would indicate a positive test, and it would mean she had impingement. The next test is the pectoralis major contraction test. So for this test, they're going to lay down and put her hands behind her head like she's relaxing. And if her elbows did not reach the table, that would indicate a positive test, and a positive test would indicate tight pectoralis major. The next one is the crank test. So for this test, I'm going to put her shoulder into 160 degrees, then I'm going to axial load and then rotate her elbow. So axial load, go up and down. And if she experienced any pain, that would be pain or click, that would be a positive test, and that would indicate a labrum injury. Then for the next test, she's going to be at 90 degrees, same thing, axial load, so axial load and up and back. If she experienced any pain, that would indicate a positive test, and that would also be a labrum injury.